What I want to do today is just quickly go through the syllabus and the deliverables, um, give you my opinion about what employers want most. Sagat, you're independently wealthy, is that correct? You're
Sorry,
retired. You don't need to work anymore. Do I have that right?
I don't need to work. A bit confused,
You,
boss.
you won the lottery. Yeah.
Uh, Lottery. No, no.
Okay. So I'm assuming most of you are looking for work after the capstone. Is that
Of course, yes.
okay?
Yes, that's the goal.
So a big goal of the capstone is to try and position you for success in the job market, right? If you're going on for a PhD or you won the lottery, you should let me know. And because if you plan to go on for a PhD, you probably want to do a capstone that's targeted more for publishing a paper, for example, right? Which anyone's welcome to do. But in general, my approach is to try and um, support you in doing work that will help you stand out in interviews. And that means a lot of work on your part, but that's a lot of what lays behind the design of the capstone. So everyone should have access to the course site at this point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In the course site, you'll find the syllabus. And your first deliverable, I believe, is this Sunday, where I'm asking everyone to give me just a short abstract, 2 or 3 sentences about what you plan to do for your capstone. And alternatively, when I talk about these 3 optional learning paths, which I'm hoping will have directed projects behind them, and I'm still working with people on that, but I want you to submit to me by end of day Sunday an email that says, here are 2 or 3 sentences what I'm planning to do, or this is the optional learning path that I want to do. I just want to really force you to make an early decision. And you can change your mind, but I want you to start by putting something down on paper and sending it to me. Is that clear? I mean, we haven't talked about the learning paths yet, but does everybody understand what I'm asking for and when I'm asking for it by?
Yes, Professor, yes.
Okay. If you are doing your own project, which is great if you want to do that, your next deliverable after that is end of day Sunday, September 14th, where my expectation is that you will have done some research about what other people have done related to your project, where you're going to get your data from, who benefits from it. And this is accomplished by filling out page 1 of Brandon Chiazza's template, brainstorming template. And if you're doing a learning path, you don't need to do that, but you'll have other deliverables. So what I want to do is meet with all of you next week on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Is there anyone here that does not work for? You'll all be fresh back from Labor Day weekend. And at that point, the people with abstracts, I'm hoping you'll just share that with the group. And if you're open to having other people work on your project with you, which you don't have to, you can work individually as long as you have, thought it through. But if you want to team up on a project that is an individual project, group project, like a brainstorming template project, when you present your abstract, you could say, I'm open to having other people join me on this. Because Pradeep might have this awesome idea and be willing to have someone, join him on the project. I want to talk a little bit about taste and ability, which will sound like a weird thing to be talking about, generative AI policy for the course, and the 3 optional learning paths. And that's sort of what I want to get done today and answer any questions that you guys have. Okay. How many can see from my video that I am, as the dean says, mid-career, and as I say, very old? Can you detect that from my voice? Or yeah, okay, good. Manuel, I appreciate your honesty. So one of the benefits of having had a long career with a lot of successes and failures along the way is I've gotten to talk with many people who hire programmers and data scientists and data analysts and engineers. And the two things I've heard over and over again, you know, I know you may be focused on getting an interview and then in an interview doing well on technical questions. But the two things I hear over and over again are, number one, can this person learn quickly what we need? And number two, can they learn it to sufficient depth that they build it out for us, right? And that sounds pretty simple, but I believe that at this point, you all should be at least competent with Python. And some of you may be very good at it, some of you may be very good coming in, but everyone here should be competent with Python, right? And you've all done work with pandas. Is that correct? Yeah. So, and some of you have taken data science and maybe some AI courses, but chances are very good that there will be Python packages coming out, or maybe new languages. Maybe they'll ask you to work in Go or Julia instead. And the expectation is that you'll be able to, with your foundational knowledge, go and learn something new quickly. You know, Pandas is, I think, a great package, but if you're working with very large amounts of data or multi-threaded data, an employer may want you to learn something else quickly instead of it, right? How many of you were taught vector databases in the program? How many of you think you'll be using vector databases in your career? I think most of you, right? So, you know, can I learn a vector database well enough to populate it and pull data out of it, right? For the needs of my customer. I mean, it's just an example, but those are the things that I think employers want most. And and I know interviews are really hard to even get right now, but if you're in an interview, you don't say, I learn quickly and I'll build what you want built. That's not very convincing, right? You could say, I had this crazy professor on a capstone project who wanted me to learn this stuff that I didn't know already. And in 8 weeks, I was up to speed and proficient, and I want to show you what I built with it, right? That's how you communicate that. And you guys are allowed to jump in, come off mute, and say, Andy, you're full of beans. I disagree. That doesn't matter. Pradeep's like just rolling his eyes and like, I can't believe he said that. Okay. So when you're thinking about a project, think about a project. If you're looking for a job, think about a project that you want to talk to an employer about. How many of you can tell I'm from the Midwest part of the United States, that I talk very slowly in a monotone, right? Can people tell that I'm from the Midwest? Yeah. I mean, can you imagine like having a whole semester with me talking? God, wouldn't that be awful? If you're in an interview with an American interviewer, and they might be from India or China or Russia, but you know, if they've lived in this country for a long time, and you kind of bombard them with everything you've done. I'm really good at Java and Microsoft Office and 50 other things. That's not very compelling. But if you are passionate about something and you can show them what you built that you're passionate about, that's really great stuff. That's the kind of thing that makes you stand out among the 4,000 other people that applied for the job, right? And again, I'm plugging this September 10th talk that I'm hoping you all will be able to come to. It's optional, ungraded, but I think it could be a game changer for you, Tushar. Yes, sir. Not like all the other times. Okay? And if I mispronounce your name, like Tushar, who's Tushar? I don't know no Tushar. You know. Okay. Taste and ability. How many of you have taste? Raise your hand. How many of you have ability? Raise your hand. Okay. Does anyone have something outside of programming that they're passionate about? Like I love to play chess, for example, and I do yoga. And so Emmanuel, what is it that you are passionate about when you're not working on your dev degree?
Mainly just building entrepreneurial stuff. I do a lot of other, programs around venture capital, entrepreneur, YC, that kind of world.
Okay.
Startup world.
And that's great. But let me ask like something maybe totally unrelated, like a sport or music instrument
Oh,
or something.
yeah, music. Music.
So what do you like to do with music? Listen to music, play music?
Create it.
Okay, how do you create your music?
Um, first of all, write it.
Okay, so you write music, you
Loops.
compose music.
Yes, compose the instrumentals as well using Fruity Loops or Cubase, whatever.
Okay, now that's very impressive. So are you better at composing music than you were 5 years ago?
Yeah, of course. Everything
course,
gets better with time. Yes.
Right. So what this quote from Ira Glass says is the way we get better at things is we have a certain taste. Like I want to create music that's like this. But then I hear a composer that I really admire that has more ability than me, right? And I say, what do I need to do to close the gap so I can produce better music? Is that kind of how it works for you, Emmanuel?
Yes, you
To
listen
say that when you know that you want to do something with composing music that you're not yet able to do,
yes,
that motivates you to figure out how to up your game of composing and get better at it.
yes,
Right?
and how to do it.
You know, Ashish, you are, one of our most accomplished students in the program. It is an honor to have you in my class, sir.
Oh,
But what are you passionate about besides finding the perfect razor?
so I sketch a lot. So when I'm not at college, when I'm not studying, the only other thing that I'm doing is sketching. It takes months to complete one sketch.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So how do you get better at sketching? How do you improve besides doing more and more sketching?
So it's not every time I sketch some things, it's not always accurate. Every stroke is not it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So when I was doing with pencil, paper, eraser, sharpener, it when I make a mistake, I erase it, draw it again, erase it, draw it again. So it used to leave prints. So then I
Yes.
got an iPad. So started doing it with iPad. But again, the sharpness of every curve, every stroke, it's hard to achieve it.
Yes.
So, and it's not like I have to slowly do it. If I slowly do it, hands start shivering. So that, practice will not make it perfect, because I read somewhere that if you practice incorrectly, you will be incorrectly perfect. So
Yes.
yeah, so
That's been good advice from everyone from Bruce Lee on down, right?
yeah. So it's not just doing every day, practicing it. It's that motivation to do it right.
Yes.
So when the nose looks right, it gives
Right.
that satisfaction. When
Yes.
the nose looks just like a nose, not beautiful, just like every other nose, it's just there. It's nothing. So it's more about being satisfied about the every stroke. It's not just
Yes.
drawing it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so, he says when it's not perfect, when it's not right, when it's not beautiful. So his taste is above what he's doing, and that pushes him to do more and better, right? And honestly, okay. So from my perspective, there are three groups of students, and I've been a part-time teacher for most of my career because I started companies, right? But the last 8 or 10 years, I've been a full-time teacher. So over the course of my life, I've taught thousands of students. And there are, a couple hundred of them that went on and did absolutely amazing things. And I think for those, couple hundred, most of them would have done absolutely amazing things with or without me. I think there's also more than a couple hundred who didn't get any benefit out of my class. They, maybe blame me, maybe blame them, but if they weren't motivated to learn from me, they kind of came out of the class untouched, or they did as little as possible to pass the class, right? And I think Ashish, whatever he chooses to do on his capstone, is going to be. I don't need to motivate him. And hopefully Emmanuel as well. But and there will be 2 or 3 of you who just want to do as little as possible, and you'll probably pass the capstone anyways if you show up and you turn things in. But I'm hoping for people who don't haven't yet developed their taste about what they're happy producing in their coding work, in their analysis work, that this will be a class when you really decide to push yourself to a level above where you are now. Okay? And that will be very compelling to employers. I know employers who would listen to Ashish talk about drawing and say, I want to hire him to write code for us, because that kind of passion tends to be transferable. Okay, so here's an example. I wrote some code to take, it was just a sample, it was like, I think 20 sample records to practice using a new package, right? It was just for my own benefit to learn the package. And I started with what's on the left-hand side, and I ended up with what's on the right-hand side, kind of like an eye exam. So Gat, what do you like better, the left-hand side or the right-hand side?
Right-hand side.
Yeah, the right-hand side. So I went through 5 iterations and I got to the right-hand side, right? And I say this to you because sometimes when you look at other students' work, if you don't have a lot of experience coming into a class and you see this amazing work done by someone, right? Maybe an amazing composition by Emmanuel or an amazing drawing by Ashish, and you say, I could never do something like that. And that may or may not be true, but the point is, like, the first thing they do probably looks more like what's on the left-hand side, and they get it to what looks on the right-hand side. Is that fair to say, Emmanuel and Ashish? We iterate toward pushing toward something that's better. And what I've found in my classes is a lot of students are willing to submit work on like what's on the left-hand side, right? And in your capstone, you can pick a single thing to do for the whole semester. And at the end of the semester, you shouldn't be doing the left-hand side. And really, you shouldn't be doing the right-hand side either. It's not very impressive. Now, left-hand side or right-hand side?
Right.
Yeah, I think most people would pick the right? Yeah, and myself. Now, what happened here was I have a friend named Claude. Does anyone know my friend Claude? Has anyone ever talked to Claude?
Yes.
Yes. And Claude is very smart. So I gave Claude what I had on the left-hand side. Claude, why don't you try and make this better? Okay. And it looks like Claude made it better because people said they liked the right-hand side better. Now, the first thing to do is to understand, to break it down and say, what's on the right-hand side that's not on the left-hand side, right? And of that, what can I do? So let's kind of pick this apart a little bit. A little challenge with my screen management. I'm trying to make this bigger. A little bigger. Can people see both of these okay? All right. So tell me something on the left-hand side that is an improvement over something on the right-hand side, just kind of like a general thing.
Color.
Percentage.
All right. Better colors or probably better colors.
Title.
Mamatha, what were you?
Percentage.
Sorry?
Like this percentage mentioned on the
good
title.
percentages. Okay.
Yes.
What else?
The title.
The
Better
title.
title.
Why is the title possibly better?
Because in one shot, anyone can understand what's is being represented.
Yeah.
The right answer.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a storytelling component to it too, right? So the title, puts forth a hypothesis. It tells a story. The percentages, the colors, and I would look at this, and I would say, okay, I can learn from this to come up with better titles. And the programming part of the better titles is easy, right? Then you've got to figure out what the title is, and that may have to do with the overall narrative of your analysis. The percentages, honestly, I knew about that before and I forgot. So that was a needed reminder. And I know how to do that, and I just forgot. Shame on me. The colors, I probably wouldn't do that. Even though I think they're better, I just think I don't have taste about colors. I'm not colorblind, but I would ask someone else for their advice on colors. Or maybe I would use a package that comes up with something like this and look at it and say, Mamatha, what do you think? Right? Okay, the next thing I'm going to say is really important. So if you produce the left-hand side and then Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, which is apparently free to students, the Google version. If you give me the code that's on the right-hand side, you're allowed to use generative AI as much as you want. Here's the caveat. You have to always be ready to explain what was produced. Okay? So, and until you understand it well enough, don't submit code that you don't understand. Is that fair? And if I don't understand code, the AI can help me figure it out, right? I can say, hey, this code, explain it to me. Or give me a ladder of 5 exercises to build up my skills so I know how to use this method or package, right? And it's pretty awesome to be able to do that. Okay, so generative AI, use it, but you are responsible for what you submit. And I'm going to talk about why I think you should use generative AI in this course. Actually, okay, here we go. So again, I was talking to my friend Claude just a couple of days ago. And in 1982, yes, I was alive and was finishing university. And there were probably 3 or 4 times as many jobs for mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, electrical engineers in the US as there were people able to do them. So it was a good market for an engineer coming out of school. And in 1982, Sun and Apollo launched specialized Unix-based engineering workstations to do engineering. And so I asked Claude, and not even a very well-worded question. Claude came back with a much better worded answer that said, depending on the kind of engineering task you're doing, you could be 2 times faster, 3 times faster, maybe 20 times faster, right? And so if you're competent with using generative AI to help you be more productive, and the other person applying for the job is not, who's going to get the job? Right? And this does create some challenges for you entering the job market. And I thankfully for that, because a lot of companies are saying, we're going to hire less new grads and have the people with 2 or 3 years experience use generative AI to do things. And that is a challenge. And my principal way to try and help you respond to it is to make sure that you are learning how to use generative AI to really be productive. And this isn't about learning how to use generative AI to be able to pass the course without having to do any work. It's really about, and some of you may manage to do that, and I'm not even out to catch you at this point. I'm just out to try and help the people who are motivated, who want to build great things. Okay. This is a quote. Does anybody know who Sam McCon is? Favorite Khan Academy. Who has heard of Khan Academy? Has anybody used Khan Academy? Okay. Sam Khan is from what country is he from? Sorry? I think he might have been born in Louisiana, but his family's from India. Has anybody here ever been to India? 1 or 2 of you. Okay. So Sam Khan was working on Wall Street, and he was, good at math, and he had, I guess he didn't have any kids. He had a nephew and a niece back in India who he was kind of tutoring on their math in high school. And so he decided to post the lessons up on YouTube so that, he'd have half as much work to do, right? And he's tutoring his nephew and his niece. He's working this job, and he's getting by. He's doing okay. And the nephew and niece share his YouTube videos with some of their friends, who share them with some of their friends, who share them with some of their friends. One day, he comes home from work, and he opens the mail, and he's got. Does anybody here know who Bill Gates is? Bill Gates. Does that name ring any bell? What company did Bill Gates found?
Microsoft.
Microsoft. And Bill Gates said, Sam and Mr. Khan, thank you so much. My kids are using your math videos. Here's a check for $150,000. Can you build some more? Right? And other people were sending him big checks. And so he started Khan Academy. So he's a very competent entrepreneurial guy. And when he says something, I tend to listen to it. But here's what he said is, be better at AI and you'll do better in the job market, right? And here he's talking, I think, mostly about generative AI to make us more productive at our work. This is a 1973 quote about that we overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate in the long run. So, when people get hyped up about things, it may come true, but not as fast as you think. Okay. for people who want to work in groups on projects that, and again, these may lead to guided projects. I'm working actively with 4 different companies, and I hope to have a couple lined up in the next week or two. The first one is, so to do the capstone, you can either pick a project and go deep on it, or you can say, I'm going to spend half my capstone really doing a deep dive on an area of technology I don't have a lot of background with. And then the second half, second 40%, 60%, building something with it, either myself or with other students. And the 3 things I have in mind are either generative AI or data-centric AI or building dashboards with Power BI. If there's something else you want to do as a guided learning, I'm open to discussing that as well, now or later. Do any of these have any appeal to any of you, that you want to hear more about any of these 3 areas, and why I think they could be beneficial to you career-wise to become expert at?
I have a question, Professor. So when you say data-centric AI, what does it exactly meaning?
Okay. So when I was first approached to build a data science program at a different university in 2013. And in 2013, if you could build a model using a random forest and logistic regression and look at 2 or 3 different metrics for it, and maybe maybe TensorFlow was starting to appear then, maybe XGBoost, but you could take models from a few different algorithms and produce a table of metrics and say, for this data set, this is the best metric. And maybe you go and you tune the model by changing some hyperparameters, right? And 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you would be a superstar data scientist if you could do that. Over time, there became more and more models. And with tools like scikit-learn and Keras and PyTorch, it became easier to build them and faster with the cloud, with GPUs, improved algorithms. And so in some cases, like spam, basically models became a solved problem. And being able to build models is still necessary, but in some people's opinion, including James Topper, those of you have heard of Mr. Topper.
Yes.
Andrew Ng, does anybody know who Andrew Ng is? Andrew Ng says, building data-centric AI applications, and here he's talking about like predictive models rather than generative AI. Building data-centric AI applications is more important, creates more value for companies than doing strictly model-based applications. And obviously, both are really important. He was talking at a NeuroIPS, it was called NIPS back then, a conference in, I think, 2021, where he launched the idea of data-centric AI. And he said, in this inaugural conference, the 100 papers that got accepted into the conference, 99 of them were about building better models, and 1 was about building better data for the models. Okay? And so if you think about a data science workflow, figure out what data you want, get the data, clean up the data, do some feature engineering, build some models, compare the models, look at the metrics, deploy it, communicate it out. Does that sound like a life cycle or workflow, Ashish? and obviously there's some iteration there, right? But what people like Andrew Ng and Jeremy Howard of Fast AI and James Topper all say, and I'm not smart enough to really think anything. I just curate the ideas that, sound good to me. And data-centric AI is definitely an idea that sounds good to me. That you can get more improvement on your model by focusing on improving the data. Making better labels, making a smaller set of high quality labels, thinking about sources of data, and once you have the whole pipeline going, maybe you build it out in Kaggle or scikit-learn or whatever, then your iteration paths are not just trying out different models and hyperparameters. And if you're working with a neural network architecture, instead of using the one with 128 hidden layers, try the one with 135 hidden layers, right? That you get more productivity out of really digging into the data. Okay, we have this unbalanced set of classes, and creating more instances of the minority class and being very thoughtful about it gives us better quality output. We're doing something called active learning. There's a whole field of research in active learning that says, if getting the right data set to begin to train the model with, and then using the model to build more data and clean up the data going forward. So data-centric AI is really, and it's a concrete set of use cases and technologies. It's not just touchy-feely, but it's the things that we do around the data rather than the model to make it more productive. And I strongly believe it. Questions, comments, disagreements? Well, if you did the data centric, there's a eight, let's call it 12 hours of video to watch from MIT and assignments, and you guys would maybe do 3 videos a week, and we would meet as a group and talk through them and come up with some kind of shared assignments to build up our skills in those areas. And at the end of the semester, maybe the last half of the semester, you would tackle a data-centric AI project.
Will you provide like what those MIT courses are? Because I'm still,
Sorry, Ben, can you repeat what you said?
yeah, the MIT courses that you're talking about. Will you be telling us what they are? And are they like CW, MIT Explore, where are they?
Yeah, it's freely available. I'll get the links out to everybody after this meeting. I should have had that done already.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so you can look over the courses and decide.
Okay.
Does anybody want to hear more about generative AI or Power BI?
Yeah.
Professor, I got a question regarding Power BI, the third one which you've mentioned.
Yes, sir.
So when you say Power BI, are we building just plain Tableau and Power BI dashboards, or are we adding something new and making building something new out of it using Power BI?
Yeah, you'll build something new. So I believe all of you had a Tableau course, right? And Power BI is a competitor to Tableau done by Microsoft. And DataCamp and Microsoft collaborated on a course that's 40 or 50 hours long on Power BI. It's a lot of material to go through. And my expectation is that people who do that will go through the whole course in the first half of the semester. And also build some little projects along the way. And in the back half of the semester, I think we'll have you do something for Katz School or maybe for some external company. And especially people who are really moving fast with it, maybe I can find one-on-one learning opportunities for you. So does anyone know what the term generational wealth means? Sometimes people make enough money that they get to be my age and they're no longer working. I say as I'm still working, right? But I did sell a company 25 years ago, and since then, I can pick and choose what I do. But I still need to do some work. One of the people who I mentored built a company around Power BI, and he became the best Power BI partner in the Microsoft world. And he sold his company in such a way that his grandchildren will never have to work. That's generational wealth. That may not happen to you in the 4 months of the capstone, but being really good at something and creating a lot of value from it. I mean, he worked his tail off for 20 years doing it too. But let me tell you kind of my religious belief about the current job market is if you're a data analyst or a data scientist and you're really good at this stuff, that may not be enough. And what I believe, my hypothesis is that if you are good with data acquisition management and everything it implies, good with Python, good with SQL, know how to do some basic models, etc. That's 2 or 3 years ago, hopefully 2 or 3 years from now, like everyone has jobs. Right now, it's hard to get an interview, and people are finding jobs, but it's tough. So I believe, and this is an opinion, it's a hypothesis, that the people who are going to do the best are those that can take those skills and work directly with the customer and that customer's requirements and build out some high value software for the customer. And I think dashboards are one of those really high value things that you can quickly show a lot of value for an organization. And I built dashboards for lots of companies, and it worked out well for me. So I'm a believer in dashboards, but it's more generally, okay, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, if you were really good at coding, you could sit in a basement and code. And now that's still true if you're really, really, really good at it. But in general, there's an expectation that you're doing something like meeting with the customer, figuring out what they need and building it, right? And anybody who's building dashboards, because it's very interactive, you build something, you show it to the customer, you build something, you show it to the customer, and after 5 or 10 iterations, you've built something great, right? Matt Mace, the guy I'm referring to whose grandchildren will never have to work, he taught a class here on dashboards a year ago. And he sent me a message, a pharmaceutical startup in the Midwest. One of the students from the program and he were working on this. And I just want to read, because he says, I'm sitting in the board meeting of this pharmaceutical company. The CEO is showing off his new Power BI dashboard that the student built, an evolution of the project we started at Yeshiva. And Matt wrote, he's showing it live. I'm getting some chills, talking about how the metrics tie back to his OKRs. And those of you who took data-driven organizations might know about objectives and key results, right? And they said, a board member just said, this is a great dashboard. I mean, Matt is so excited. He's like texting me in real time, thinking that an old person knows how to text in real time. Ha, silly Matt. But the point is that if you can take your Python and your SQL skills and your understanding of data and objects and what companies care about with metrics and work with a customer to iteratively build out something that is great for them, then the best possible outcome is the CEO of the company takes credit for it, calls it his dashboard or her dashboard, and you continue to work there, maybe even get promoted. And that doesn't happen all the time, but this was an email from Tuesday. Okay. Can't promise you generational wealth or even a job, but my belief is that getting closer to the customer and the customer requirements will benefit you. Now, the other way to go with it, for those of you who've taken classes like information architectures and cloud computing, is to be really good on the deployment side. To be able to say, okay, when this scales up to be 100 times as big, or it scales up to have 100 times as many users, I know how to do that. So I think if you can get some AI engineering practice to go with your what you've learned in the program, that can also put you in good stead. Okay. Let me talk a little bit about generative AI, because I think that is not overhyped. This also lets me go back to one of my favorite topics, which is data-centric AI. Has anybody here ever done retrieval augmented generation? So, Kekol, how do you say your name?
Manvita.
I wasn't even close.
Manvita. That's my Kakolu is my last name.
Oh, okay, got it. I don't think I have you down here as a student. Are you registered for the Capstone?
Yes.
Okay. Manrital.
Yes.
Okay.
Manvita Karanam. Might be you could see Karanam.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Manvitha Karanam. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Understood. Okay. And I got your resume as well. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So what did you do with retrieval augmented generation?
I was working with the RAG projects recently. The main idea behind creating RAG is to understand any, for me, to study and research papers, to study an external information. To make it easy, I have created a RAG based chatbot to make it easier for me. It's giving an external information from an existing LLM to use that knowledge base to give me more information on a specific use case. That's how RAG was implemented. In recent days, like everybody is using, wanted their separate chatbots or separate LLMs, kind of chatbots for their specific organizations or for their companies. They use RAG so that they can dump their own database to the LLM to give a specific and accurate results. That's how RAG is helping them in a very advanced way and to give proper insights to their customers.
Great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
All right. So an example here at Yeshiva University was last semester, or
They have created kind of chatbot.
right. They created a chatbot at the Career Center, for example.
Yes.
And the value proposition of the chatbot is if someone in India or Israel or Russia or France or China or Cameroon wants to interact that's not during regular hours, or maybe they are talking in Mandarin or Tamil, the chatbot will answer them in their own language. And so,
Actually, I have a point to talk about that. Can't we merge and integrate, generate AI agents or multi-level agents to the existing chatbot to the canvas to make it easier to the students? Or I just have an idea of implement agents to the project.
I want you to share that with us, but I also you should reach out to Anag Singh,
Okay.
who was leading that project he's an employee of Susan at the Career Center. And I can send you his email address.
Okay. I just have an idea so that we can do a project in agents as well.
No, I think that's a great idea. And I think Anag will be very open to it. He's a very bright guy. And yeah, please, let's talk more about that, but not today, just because we're.
Yeah.
If you think about the data science workflow or life cycle that we talked about, in retrieval augmented generation, there are two separate workflows. One is an offline workflow that populates a vector database. So in the Career Center, it was a matter of grabbing a lot of data that was either in HTML or PDF files, vectorizing it and putting it into the knowledge database. And this indexing pipeline then fed the generation pipeline for the chatbot. And so if you're focused on data-centric AI, that might mean learning about all the different data sources that could feed a retrieval augmented generation vector database, right? Or knowing that, let's say that Manvitha is the user, and for her agents, she needs to get data from these other sources that are maybe in JSON or an EDI file or an API. Someone with data-centric skills would think about where to get that and how best to store it so that it can be retrieved well, et cetera. Okay? So I will send people links to, I'll send people a copy of this deck, as well as links to the 3 areas for learning, if you're interested. Next Tuesday at 10, we'll all meet and you'll either present an abstract or say, this is one of the 3 areas I want to work in. Okay? And if you are presenting an abstract, also say, I want to work on this myself, or I'm open to having other students talk to me about working with me. And, if Mamatha has an idea for an abstract and Ashish wants to work with her, they both have to say yes. Like, you can't just assign yourself into someone else's group, right?